Hello, my name is Dr. Aaron Schultz, and I lead the Environmental and Human Toxicology Research Group at Deakin University in Australia. My research group is using a One Health approach to understand plastic pollution risks. I look forward in this presentation to share with you sort of what this approach is and the types of research that my group is conducting. I wish to first begin, though, by acknowledging the Wadawurrung people and the Gulidjan people of the Kulin Nations, the traditional owners of the land for which my fieldwork research as well as lab research has been conducted and continues to be conducted, as well as the Wurundjeri people, the traditional owners of the land on which I'm presenting this seminar today here in Melbourne. I pay my respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, to their elders past, present and future, and will always be mindful and respectful that our First Nations people are the traditional custodians of this country. Every week, I feel like there's a new article on plastics and microplastics, with them being detected in the Mariana Trench in the deepest part of the ocean, the top of Mount Everest, and these other extreme environments around the globe. More concerningly, recently, there has been a lot of research showing that microplastics are present in the human body, with them being detected in a whole host of different organs and tissues in us as humans. There's also research now showing that the plastics and these tiny plastic particles, as well as the chemicals in those plastics that can be released, may have health impacts to us as humans when we are actually absorbing them or ingesting them. So firstly, what is a microplastic? So microplastics have been defined as tiny plastic materials that are less than 5 millimeters in diameter. And so as you can see in this figure here, this is as small as an eraser on the end of a pencil, down to a size range here of 1 micrometer, which is as small as a bacteria. So these are very small particles that we can see with the naked eye, but also need microscopy techniques to be able to magnify samples to be able to view them. We also have plastic particles existing in smaller sizes as well at the submicron as well as nano range that are referred to or termed submicron plastics and nanoplastics. And again, these are tiny, tiny particles that we can't see with our actual eyes and need specialized microscopes and other analytical tools to be able to measure them. With our microplastics, we know that plastic is used every day by us as a human society. If you look in the environment where you currently are or the room, you could probably point out so many different objects that are made with plastic. And so there are a lot of different sources of these microplastics entering both the land and water, whether it's from tire wear and from the tires on our vehicles, from the clothing that we wear with the textile fibers that are released during washing, as well as all of the plastic litter that ends up in these environments from our plastic cups, our plastic straws, as well as our plastic bags and containers. We can also have microplastics being released from agricultural sources or from agriculture, from mulch films, as well as from fertilizer activities. Water sources of microplastics can include different parts from wastewater, whether it's from industrial or household waste. Microplastics historically were also used in personal care products in microbeads or in the form of microbeads that were used in facial scrubs. So they've been banned in a lot of countries like Australia now. And we can also have microfibers and microplastics being released from other plastic materials used in fishing activities, from lost gear and nets, as well as from other maritime traffic and activities from boats, like the paints used on the hulls and other shipping discharges. Unfortunately, when these microplastics enter each of these different environments, they have the potential risk of polluting the soil, our rivers, our lakes, and our oceans. And so this is an area that my research group is trying to study and understand more information on. So when we think about this One Health approach that my research group is trying to use to assess plastic pollution risks, What One Health is it's an integrated and unifying approach that aims to sustainably balance and optimize the health of people, our animals, and ecosystems. So you may be thinking, well, what is this and what is that? So when we think about our environment that we live in, we know that if we think about us as humans, to be able to have healthy individuals or healthy people and healthy populations, we know that the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food sources that we're relying on, they also have to be healthy. And so we have to have these healthy environments for us to have sustained health. For a healthy environment, we know as well that when we have healthy air, healthy water, healthy land, the other animals that live in those environments are also going to have improved health and are going to have sustained health. So we know that when we think about all of these different factors, they're all connected. And so by having now all of these environments being healthy, we can have a healthy global society as well as a healthy planet. Unfortunately, we know that this is not always the case. And if we now throw out one of these important components, it's going to have a significant effect on the other two components. So let's look at an example where we now have a polluted environment. We now have, in this example, a polluted river or stream. We know that the animals living in that environment are now going to also be impacted, and their health is going to come under threat, and there's potential for them to become unhealthy. The humans that now live close to that environment or next to the environment are drinking that water, relying on the animals and fish in that environment for their food source. We know that they're also now going to be impacted. And so by throwing out one of these important components, we now throw out this entire global sort of environment that we think of, and we can now have an impact on all three facets of this One Health. And so by looking at this as a one lens with it all being connected, we can now look at trying to understand the risks that plastics may pose, not only to one isolated component, but all of this holistically. So my group is using this One Health approach to look at the risks that plastic pollution poses, not only to us as humans, but also thinking about the environment as well as the animals that live in those environments. This includes going out into the field and collecting samples from freshwater environments as well as marine environments to monitor and measure microplastic levels. And so an example of this includes beach monitoring, where we go out and filter sand to look for larger microplastic fragments and sizes to detect whether there are microplastics in our coastal environments. If we look at some examples, these are some images of microfibers under a microscope, so we can see that we can detect these fibers in some of these samples when we take them back to the lab. As well as in the middle here, which is harder to see, this is actually a polystyrene microplastic, and so this is foam. And so it was a foam sample that we saw in a beach sample that we collected as well. In the lab, we're also able to conduct experiments to look at the risks of these plastics and the different types of microplastics to aquatic animals using zebrafish. So zebrafish are a fish that you may see at your local aquarium, very popular as an ornamental fish used in aquaria. They're also used globally in the scientific community for a whole host of different research and are a really important research model. In the field, we can also collect samples as well of freshwater native shrimp that we can see here, beach insect species, as well as marine species like our blue mussels here. And so we have been able to collect these, bring them back to the lab and measure microplastic levels in each of these different species or animals as well. When we think about our human health impacts, in the lab, we're able to culture different types of human cell lines. And so these are cells that have been extracted from different organs and tissues that we can now purchase commercially. We can grow these cells in the lab and expose them to plastics and look at the risks to the cells, which can then infer the risks that it may have to our organs in the human body. And we also use zebrafish embryos. So this is a little embryo under a microscope with its heart beating as a really good model as well for understanding potential risks to animals when they're developing. So overall, we're able to look at each of these different important components and understand the potential risks that microplastics have by using this One Health approach. This research wouldn't be possible without the amazing graduate researcher team that I have the privilege and honor of mentoring and supervising. And so this includes PhD students looking at the effects of microplastics and risks to human health, as well as to terrestrial and aquatic environments, and assessing their potential risks to different animals and animal species as well. So I'd like to thank all of these amazing graduate researchers, because without them, this research wouldn't be possible, as well as my colleagues and collaborators at Deakin, as well as external partners. And with that, I thank you for listening to this presentation and hope you've learned a little bit more about why a One Health approach is really important in understanding plastic pollution risks. If you'd like to reach out, if you have any other questions, you can contact me via this email. Thank you.